Guys, I'm Diego, and as you can see, we're getting started here in our Agrarian Skies world. I do have about, well, as you can see, the video is roughly 20 minutes or so long. I do apologize for the way the next little bit of this video will start the next cut. I was originally going to append it to the episode before this, episode 7, and then when I realized quite how long it was, I just decided to make it its own update episode, mainly because it's kind of supposed to highlight the things that I've done since the last episode. So yeah, this is episode 8, and I hope you guys enjoy. Hola guys, welcome back. Alright, now, this is going to be the last little bit of this episode. I've noticed it's getting fairly fragmented in terms of when I've been able to record for it. I have made some more progress on a few different things, starting with a couple of quests. Now, I don't believe I've mentioned this before. This is the bookbinder. The bookbinder is made with 2 pieces of paper and 2 pieces of string. It is actually part of a quest from the quest book. Just in case I didn't show it, it is the librarian quest here. You don't get a whole lot for it, but it allows you to keep all of your books in one place, and you just right-click on the book to actually open it up. Now, the other quests that I've actually gone ahead and completed here, I've completed a total of 3 or 4, I want to say, possibly more. So as you can see, haven't done any go with the flow, just because currently that requires a fluid management, and I'm not overly worried with fluid management right now. Bees and trees, I don't think I've done anything additional. Nope. For the hoarding, this is one of the ones that rather that I have done. The digital storage. This is the one that was for all the applied energistics items. I did complete all of those. I do believe I showed you those. I'm not going to show you all the recipes simply because they get fairly complex. But we'll redeem that, and I'll worry about redeeming the bag later off camera. You're a wizard and Hell's Kitchen. Now this one I did do a few off camera. We've got the cooking channel, which requires making a juicer, bakeware, and mixing bowl. The juicer yeah, this gets iffy when you start looking into the harvest craft recipes. I find anytime you pull up the recipes for these, or you have any of these in your inventory, it gets a bit iffy and things start duplicating. And then when you reopen your inventory, things jump out of your inventory, so it can be a bit of a pain. So this is just stone and a pressure plate. And we've got the bakeware. Bakeware, which is either 8 bricks or 8 pieces of glass. That's up to you. And then finally the mixing bowl, which is simply 3 pieces of wood and a stick. So that's not too bad. Then we've got the culinary genius, which I'm actually going to go ahead and redeem now, which has a cutting board, skillet, mortar and pestle, and a pot. So the cutting board, yes, it's starting to do it already. Cutting board, oh my goodness, is that, and that. Yeah, see. It gets really strange when you try to look these recipes up. Pot. I mean, it could just be an AI acting up, but for some reason it seems to mostly affect me when I'm looking up these recipes. Alright, so where is the pot? There it is. Pot. 4 pieces of iron and a stick. Then we need the mortar and pestle, which is 3 pieces of stone and a stick. And what was the last thing we needed for that one? The skillet. Recipe for the skillet looks like so. And then we have the spice it up, which requires making salt, fresh milk, fresh water, butter, heavy cream, and cheese. Now this isn't overly difficult, but it can be a little bit annoying to go through the process. Salt, you get simply from, well, you can either do it with water in a pot. I thought there was a different way to do it. There are a few other ways of doing it, but if you put water and a pot in your inventory, it will give you salt. Fresh water is actually just a bucket of water, I believe, in your inventory. Gives you 4. Same with milk. Milk will give you fresh milk if you just put it in your inventory like so. Then you need butter, heavy cream, and cheese. The butter is made with heavy cream, saucepan, which is made like so, and salt either from the ore block, well, rather from the mariculture, or from Pam's Harvest Craft. Heavy cream coming from a mixing bowl, and any sort of milk. Oops. All right, and the last thing we needed for this one is cheese, which requires milk, salt, and a pot instead of a whatever the other one was. But at any rate, that's all you need to do for those quests. The last quest that I believe that I've finished here is the Smooth Ice, which requires a glacial precipitator from thermal expansion. So I'll go ahead and I'll just claim that reward now. If I recall correctly, that should be the last one that I've done. Okay, so it is. Now, the last thing that I wanted to show you guys here, just before we end off this episode, I am in 2.1.1 of Agrarian Skies mod pack. They have added in a few additional quest branches, such as Steel Power and Bragging Rights. Now, the Steel Power looks like it's mostly mostly tied in with just a few specific things, probably generally just making better tools and things like that, which to me sounds like a good idea because there's not really anything else in any of these trees that encourages that. Then we have the bragging rights, which ironically enough is literally just make things and get a sign. There's no actual reward. For example, thermal fanboy, all you get is a sign that probably says that. P Dominion, McCory's. You have to make all these different things for each of these. As you can see, there's quite a few, and all you get is a sign. Now, the bee domination one, oh my goodness, 100,000 forest drones. That would be a small nightmare. So we'll see what we do. Again, we still haven't done a whole lot of progress with the bees, but we are working on that. As for the rest of it, there is actually one more thing I think I wanted to show you guys up in my tower there. So I will be back once I'm ready to show you guys what's going on up there. All right, so first and foremost, guys, we actually have the elevator block here. This is something that's fairly important for traversing through this. Obviously, I don't have a staircase. The elevator block you can use by simply standing on and pressing a spacebar, and it will bring you to the next elevator block directly above you. So you can do this multiple times. As you can see, I've got a few different levels. Once you reach the top, it will stop carrying you upwards. Same thing for going down. If you hit the left shift key, it will drop you down to the next available level until there's no more. The recipe for this block is 1 ender pearl and 8 pieces of wool. Obviously, it's not too difficult. The ender pearls can be a bit of a pain, but if you set up an auto spawner like I have, it's usually not too big of a deal. Now, actually, in order to pull up the recipe from this page with the elevator, that's just the numpad 3 when you're looking at the block, and that'll pull it up. As well, you can also use the numpad 4 on certain blocks. As you see, it has no usage found, simply because that block can't be used in anything. If I use numpad 4 on a torch, it will show you what that block can be used for in other recipes. Alright, so let's go ahead and come back up here. Now this mess, it's kind of difficult to see, is actually a soul sand production facility, essentially. Basically, the way this works, I've got an infinite water source over here with an autonomous activator. Its job is simply to take buckets and fill them with water just by right-clicking. Obviously, you could use an aqueous accumulator and a what's the other one? The one that fills them up with liquids. I can't remember the name right now. I'm tired. But anyway, you could use that. I'm not sure if that might be faster, and in fact, that might be more efficient because this one typically tends to right-click the full buckets, as you can see, and it kind of becomes a problem. I might change that in the future. But the idea is it pumps in, let me get rid of stuff in my hand. It pumps in empty buckets, as many as it can find, into this, and then it outputs as many full water buckets as it can at one time. And as you can see, these systems do intercross here. That's not a problem. It is fairly smart. So when it outputs, it knows to send them out. It does also tend to overflow itself, which is the only reason that this actually stays stable for the most part. It then pumps in through the item ducts up to two at a time, or not up to two at a time, but up to two at once, just to try and manage things a little bit better. And I did fill all of these with water. Technically, I don't believe you have to, but I just figured I would just to make sure nothing else gets in there. So we make sure that it uses all of the water buckets there, fills them as needed, and then it will automatically refill it with another once it gets the chance. Now these are just to output the empty buckets, etc., etc., and every single one of these is hooked up the exact same way. Now, on the other side, show you guys how this works. It's a little bit difficult to see, but down there is actually mycelium, and I have oak barrels on top, filled with water on top of them. That turns the water into witch water, which is required for the soul sand. And in order to turn witch water into soul sand, you have to power one. That's interesting. You actually have to right-click with sand into the barrel. Now, obviously, it doesn't seem to be quite keeping up at this point. For the most part, it looks like it can keep up with about 6. I will need to probably modify the system a little bit, but for now, this works fairly well. But at any rate, they right-click the sand into the barrels once it's ready, turns it into soul sand, and then right-clicks it again, dropping the soul sand so that it can be picked up by our vacuum hoppers here. The vacuum hoppers then pipe directly into the item ducts. Yes, this does work, thank goodness. So it drops them into the item ducts. It does get a little bit of lag spiky if I'm standing here when they drop. Unfortunately, I don't know of any other way to do this, so it is a little bit frustrating. I do tend to turn this off every so often. That's what this is for. As well, it pumps everything into this better barrel. Now, I do need to talk about the better barrel. I set this up off camera just because it's a little bit, well, not complex, but it's an upgraded barrel. As you can see at the top, it can hold about 16,000 items or 256 stacks. It also has 3 out of 7 upgrade slots remaining, and its structural level is 3. What does all that mean? Well, if we search Java or just a better barrel attempt, you can see we have a few different upgrade types here. Structural Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. I have it set up with the Mark III. In order to get to the Mark III, you do have to use the Mark I and the Mark II on it first. If you attempt to use something, like let's say you try to skip to the Mark III, it'll tell you it needs at least Mark II. To use the Mark II, it says you need at least Mark I. So it will force you to use the cheaper ones first. So if you're trying to use, Manulium or Fluxed Electrum or, even Enderium, it will tell you you have to upgrade them first. So it can get a bit expensive if you try to do this on a large scale, but overall it's really not a big deal. At any rate, 7 slots provided, that's all I needed. 1 for the redstone upgrade, which allows the barrel to emit redstone. In order to do that, you actually have to create a redstone facade for the outside. That's this little red dot here. Now this recipe is fairly cheap. It's just 4 wood, 4 pieces of, 4 planks, and 1 piece of redstone, and the structural are basically the following. Just changing this individual recipe depending on which one you're making. And then I also added in the storage upgrade times 3. The recipe for this just requires 3 storage upgrades, which is 2 pistons and a better barrel. So it's not too bad overall. The redstone upgrade is a bit more. It's 9 pieces of redstone and 2 pistons. And you actually want to apply the redstone upgrade first, I believe, just to make sure that you don't lose your facade. But the general idea is once this is full, it will emit redstone, which will automatically stop the autonomous activators. If I force stop them, then it does it automatically. I believe there is one there is one underneath here, and it does work as well, as far as I can tell. It's a bit difficult for me to tell if it is in fact working, but I do believe it is. Now the water system, like I mentioned before, is working fine. It's the sand. I'll probably have to either add to this or figure out a better way of working the system here, because it is using all of the sand. I might just double layer this just to add some out in front. But basically for this system, it's just an igneous extruder creating cobblestone with a pulverizer creating gravel, and a pulverizer turning gravel into sand. So I might even, oh yeah, so this won't be difficult to upgrade then. But at any rate, it outputs and gives me soul sand. And just to go have a little bit of a refresher up here, I have actually placed down some of my ME stuff. I've got my ME controller, which currently isn't connected to a whole lot. We've got the ME drive, which has a 1K storage just for uh, setup purposes, and then it has the ME crafting terminal. Now, as you can see, it does have 939 obsidian in it, but if you look at the actual drive itself, it shows that there's nothing inside. That's because I have a storage bus connected to the better barrel. The storage bus allows the system to see what's in the barrel and to be able to access it, so I can take a stack out and it will affect the barrel. And I can put stuff back into the crafting terminal and it will put it back into the barrel. So it allows you to store things inside barrels so you can keep limited quantities of things. For example, 64 stacks of one item. I don't need, any more than 64 stacks of obsidian. But if I were to directly import the obsidian into the system, you would run into an issue with overflow, or you'd fill up your system with obsidian eventually, and that's obviously not very good. This way you can limit how much you have. You can do the same thing with a chest if you don't want 64, but I figured, just a better barrel. It's a better barrel that gives you more storage. So this way I have loads of extra materials. I've got, 64 stacks of cobble. I will be modifying this system eventually. I'll probably either upgrade this barrel or put a deep storage unit down, because we do need about roughly 8 million pieces of cobble, and the amount of time I'm on here, I could generate quite a bit. So that's two systems here. Actually, the lava comes from above. This is used to make the obsidian. And then over here, we actually have the igneous extruder making the cobble as well. These are just covers to cover up a few water blocks. There's actually a aqueous accumulator back there that is connected to our igneous extruder just to keep it full of water. Over here, we actually have our glass factory, which is again connected to the igneous extruder for gravel, and then for gravel to sand, and then for sand to glass. And then all of the overflow, because obviously cobblestone to gravel creates sand and gravel to sand creates dust, those overflow directly into these systems, uh, which are not currently running. I'm actually going to modify this a little bit more. I'm going to probably add in a few conduits, replace these chests with conduits, put one chest in the middle, and uh, probably just import it all into the system from there. I do need to set up a processing facility for all the ores first, which is why this isn't running. Just because I don't want to get stuck in a situation where I don't have access to a lot of ores, or where I'm trying to store stuff inside the system that doesn't need to be there. But at any rate, that's what's going on here. And last but not least, you guys have already seen this system, the lava system. It is actually almost perfectly balanced as far as I can tell. It doesn't seem to be showing the actual amounts, but this one's running at about 40 RF, and there's two others here. I think it's this one. Yep, this one and this one appear to be the only two that are running at maximum capacity right now. This one on the end is running at about half capacity. Basically, what's going on with those, they're running at about, I think it's about 200 RF per tick. Now, this can only hold 400. I do need to upgrade this in the future, just so I have the ability to input all of the power from these. But the 200 RF per tick is all that's currently being used downstairs, so that's all that's being generated. The more you use, the more of these will be running on empty. For example, this one's at 400, so it only generates 4 RF per tick. That's a guaranteed 4 RF, so I'm actually using a bit more than 200. I'm probably 240, 280 or so, but with those extras running at 4, it roughly works out. But at any rate, that's everything I have to show you guys for today. I will be back hopefully in the future. I'm going to try and set up a few more systems similar to this one. I'd like this whole tower area to be my general production area. As you can see in here, oops, I'm dropping things I shouldn't be. As you can see inside the quest book, there are quite a few hoarding type quests for ice, for dirt, soul sand, the end stone, wood, all sorts of things, like 100,000 pieces of oak wood. It's going to take a while to get a lot of this stuff. But in the end, oh geez, that's going to be a pain. In the end, this will be well worth doing, but it's just going to take quite a bit of time, e.g., ME 16 million storage, that's a fairly expensive piece of equipment there. But basically, just wanted to show you guys that this is something, this is what I've done, this is a system I have, and explain how it works so you guys can, emulate it if you need to. Because for soul sand, I mean, trying to get 10,000 soul sand by hand, I think it's 10,000. Yeah, 10,000. You would not want to do that by hand. So this is a system that's functional. I would argue it's fairly compact considering it's running, 8 of them. I might just turn off the last 3, or last 2, I suppose, as I don't really need them. It is running fairly quickly. But at any rate, guys, thank you for watching. If you have any questions about any of the systems I've showed in this episode or previous, or if you have any questions about anything else, any of the quests, or if you have anything you've noticed that you want to let me know about, obviously let me know. I'm always open to suggestions or anything that I may have missed or skipped over, or anything that I may have done, quest wise that's considered incorrect. Go for it. Let me know, and I'll make sure I address it in future episodes. I am in the process of tearing this all down. Technically, this is a system that doesn't exist. I did actually move everything over. I just haven't made a point of destroying everything here. Rather than destroy it all by hand and then rebuild it, I just, you know, cheated it and I'm going to destroy this all. So when I get around to it, I'll destroy it. But for now, I'm just being lazy. Anyways, thank you guys for watching again. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions or concerns, always feel free to comment. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Thank you guys. I've been Diego. Bye-bye.